Good to go? Okay. It is Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. It is 4 o'clock, and this is the regular business meeting of the Jefferson Public Utility District Board of Commissioners. My name is Jeff Randall. I'm president of the board, and I'm calling this meeting to order. Jefferson PUD will be offering both virtual online meetings as well as in-person meetings unless advance notice is provided. Online participant audio will be muted upon entry. Please unmute at the appropriate time to speak. And if you're calling in, use *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise a hand to request to speak. And we'll do a quick roll call of commissioners. My name is Jeff Randall. I'm commissioner for District 1 and president of the board.
Kenneth Collins, Commissioner, District 2.
Dan Tupper, Commissioner for District 3.
Thank you, everybody. So our next item is agenda review. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
I'll make-
Seeing none, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor of approving the agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye, we have approved the agenda. Our next item is public comment. And this is for public comment for things not on the agenda or on consent agenda. The public comment period allows members of the public to comment limited to 3 minutes each on any items not specifically listed on the agenda or for items listed on the consent agenda. Prior to any public comment, members of the public must first be recognized by the president and are not permitted to disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct and fair progress of the commission's meeting. After an initial warning by the president, individuals who intentionally violate these guidelines through actual disruption of the commission meeting will be dropped from the meeting. So do we have anybody in the room or online who would like to speak? Bill?
Bill Stover, District 1. The comment and a question. So the comment is, I spent some time on the PUD website looking at the outage management tracker, which is new to me, and I think it's fairly new to the website. And I found it to be really fascinating, very comprehensive, easy to use. I think I haven't seen anything like it on any other PUD websites. Might be a Blue Ribbon Award, and next competition, whatever that is. But I really liked it and appreciate the effort that went into it. My question is, at the August 20th meeting, there were 6 regulators approved for purchase. I understand a little more about that. Are those single phase? Does it take 3 of them to upgrade a substation, or is this so we got 2 substations worth of upgrades here, or have we got 6 substations?
Okay, is that all of your comment and questions?
That's it.
Okay, Kevin, would you mind addressing that during manager's report if that's okay?
Do it.
Okay. Any other public comments, questions in the room or online? Are you seeing anybody? Hands up. I'm not seeing anybody. Okay, we will move on. So next item on the agenda is manager and staff reports.
And we have a lot of reports to give.
Okay,
We're gonna start with the budget update. Mike will give that, and he has a quick little sheet to share.
great.
Oh, oops. I switched screens here. Did it come up, Holly?
Is my head in the way again?
No, when I switched to slide map to the slideshow,
Okay.
it took it a second to pop up, so.
Okay.
Just a quick update, because we are in budget season, we're
And,
getting
and
close.
just for niceness, could you please introduce yourself when it's the first time you talk, just for people who may not know, and for the record?
Yeah, Mike Bailey, Finance Director for the PUD. Just a quick update on our 2025 budget. I presented some information to the board on August 16th. We did have to have it posted this weekend to our website. So based on from this August 16th through today, after the meeting, I went back and made a couple of changes. So just wanted to give an update to the board on where we're at. And we're only concentrating on the expense side of things right now. We're not looking at capital. Capital will be in a couple of weeks at that meeting. So I'm only looking at the expense side of things right now.
Okay.
So looking at the electric utility budget, I did go through and make a couple of changes to some things that we were looking at. I updated our BPA invoices just to get a better, more accurate, more in line where we've been. I also changed how we calculate our workman's comp insurance, or how we budget for workman's comp premiums. It was the system defaults to what they would get if they got on workman's comp, not the premium for the insurance that we paid. So that's where we're getting a net increase between the two. On the electric side, where we increased our expenses 378,000 because we saved some money, but I increased the BPA. So that's where the net margins, we're losing a little bit on the net margins, which affects our tier and our debt service coverage, but we're trying to get a more accurate cost of our expenses, and we do budget conservatively on our expenses. So you can see I've kept the revenues the same, but with the change in revenue and expenses, they did go up a little bit. Not very much on the electric side of things. The non-operating margins stayed the same. And then the decrease in the net margins at the bottom of the tier changed slightly.
Okay. And because we're not through with the year, I expect you're gonna continue to come back to us through the rest of the year on here's how things are really working out.
Yep,
Okay.
yeah, that's really how it works. We're just running out of time between the two budgets when everything to do, so just
Okay.
kind of quick some updates on everything. The big change you can see here as we switch to the water utility budget. When I presented on 8/16, we were losing, net operating margins, we were $500,000 in the hole. Still losing for the year, but with the changes, again, it says workman's comp for the water crew side of things actually saved us money. So we actually decreased our total expenses by a little over $700,000 just because of the.
Could you explain that? That seems like a really big number to come out of workman's compensation.
So how the system budgets, I use our NISC IView system and their CFC, the Cooperative Finance Corporation. They have a Budget Pro system, and so I use that to help budget. And when they calculate workman's comp, they calculate it at what they would earn if they went on workman's comp. So I'm budgeting for the employee's salary, plus I was budgeting for 87% of their salary.
Okay,
So it was almost like I was doubling up on salaries.
okay.
So that was causing the huge increase instead of just covering for the premiums of the insurance.
Okay.
That we were doing, so.
Do you mind if I just?
Yeah, go right ahead.
quickly? As Mike just mentioned, we pay the premiums, but we don't pay when an employee is on workers' compensation,
Mhm.
because the state pays for that. So just a point of clarification.
Okay,
Yeah, so, yeah, but the system was budgeting for both of them, so
Okay.
that's why and that's not just the water side, that's on the office employees, the electric employees, and the water employees. It was budgeting at what they would normally get,
okay.
so we were doubling up salaries, so.
So were there changes in the LNI way of doing things this year, year over year, or, in the past, or is this something we've been doing and budgeting for and in the past then, or?
Yeah, so we've always been doing it, and normally it's always been where the workman's comp has been a higher, I've adjusted it usually down a little bit. But this time I adjusted it down to what the LNI rate increases were for the premiums instead of what they had actually get paid, because then we're doubling, basically we're recording salaries twice. We're budgeting for salaries twice.
Okay.
And so just as I keep doing this, we keep trying to get a little bit better rounding on how we budget and everything.
So in previous years, if we were budgeting for both the premiums and the salaries of people, then we saved the salaries each year.
Correct. Yeah, that's why, sometimes you see a big difference between our actuals and our expenses. Is because we budgeted for those additional salaries that we didn't end up having to use. We paid the premiums, but not the salaries. So to get a better, like I said, to keep improving this every year, that Kevin, Melanie and I, we decided just to do the premiums this year.
Yeah.
Instead of doing both of them. So the water side, that's where you can really see the big difference. The electric side, we would have seen a big difference too, but because I had to adjust the EPA, it didn't adjust it as
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then the broadband utility, just there's not as many people on the broadband. So it doesn't get affected as much, but we did save a little bit, about $175,000. Same type of thing. It's all because of the workman's comp and how we're calculating that.
Yeah.
No other changes have really been made to any of the expenses. It's just budgeting that one for that big expense item there. So you can see where we have done there. So that's where we're at right now on the, and these are the expenses that, this is part of that, the budget that was on our website right now. Because we had to do it within 30 days. So that's, the next one is just the budget timeline. The draft budget, we actually did it, Jameson posted it to the website on Friday, the 30th. And which we had to do by today, or by yesterday, excuse me, Monday, September 2nd, because we have to have it posted by the first Monday of September. The next update will be at the BOC meeting on the 17th, which we'll talk a little bit more about capital budget. That time, we do have our budget hearing scheduled for Monday, October 7th. And then we'll have additional meetings as needed between October and November. And then the budget has to be approved by November 30th. So just a quick timeline, but yeah, today just wanted to touch, since we're running short on time, just a quick update on the expenses, on the expense and revenue side of things, so. And that's all I had on that, unless you guys have any other questions or anything.
Questions for Mike? All right, you're off the hook.
Hey, we're gonna jump to Jean, and she has an update on some credits.
So, Jean Pepper, Services Director. Update on the clean energy credits, the application portal closed September 1st. To date, we have awarded $526,000 in energy credits. The initial, grant of that was to folks with 80% of AMI or less. And we had 1,949 customers qualify at that level. We do still have 4 customers who we're trying to get through after the end there, because of a rate issue. They weren't able to apply online.
Okay.
But we're working on that.
Their applications are in the door, trying to help them.
We're trying
get
to
through
help
it.
them.
Okay, great. That's a lot of money.
A lot of money.
$500,000 coming back.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
good job.
It was easy
We don't say that too often.
And fun.
and fun. I love that. I love giving money away.
Okay,
Hey,
thanks, Gene.
Jose is gonna give us an update on our lead pipe survey that we had. to
Oh, we haven't heard about this for a while.
Jose Escalera, Joint Utilities. We submitted our findings to the state, 319 services. We found no evidence of lead. There's a few galvanized non-lead solder pipes. It's all threaded. We should be hearing back from them. I did speak with Scott Pollock, the regional engineer. So they were sourcing out their, I guess, the lists, everyone that's sending them, they're getting so many of them that it may take a little bit before we get them, but as far as we know now, we're in good standing.
So the bottom line is we did whatever sort of survey we were supposed to do of determining what the issue is on our service area and found no evidence of lines that we're going to have to replace. Is that
Correct.
okay? And that information will get processed and then we'll hear back at some point.
We sent it, it's been recorded that we sent it before the due date, October 16th. And if there's any issues with it, they'll let us know. That may take a few months.
Yeah, and that's wild that this is happening across the entire United States. That's amazing. All right. Thanks, Jose. Any questions for Jose? Bill, did you have a question about this?
When this was discussed several months ago, there was a concern about having to hire a bunch of contractors to go do all this surveying. I'm just curious, how did you get all this done so quick? It sounded.
Did we have to go to outside folks or were
We did go to bid with it. We got a contractor, they were on it, they didn't pull off until they were done. So the way it worked was if you found a line that needed replacement, they would allow for you to finish the project and then come back and fix those lines.
Mhm.
So it was determined that once they started, they weren't gonna pull off until they were completely done. So
Okay.
they went in and were able to do
And
it.
as far as we're concerned, they're done unless we hear otherwise back from the state.
We did not find any evidence of lead service lines. The report has been submitted to the state. If they have any questions on that, then they'll inform us, but our initial inventory list has been submitted and recorded to the state.
So one quick follow-up on this process. So this was like a sampling, right? It was kind of a random, I know we took a couple different things, metrics into account. So does this alleviate of us having to do any more research on systems? I mean, what's that process
Yeah, so
moving
we
forward?
took 20% of every system and we did a predictive model over each individual system, right? So for example, Tri-Area, there was 500 or 257 services that we had to excavate. So we went ahead and did those. Only 20% was 257 of them. We went in, excavated, logged it, took pictures of it, recorded it, and then that's the report that we sent to the state.
So the state's not going to require us to do any more than moving forward. That
They're on line
satisfies
if they-
our,
If they want us to, we have the report already, so they're,
But that was their standard 20.
that was the
20%,
standard.
okay.
20%.
thank you. And just a bit of side information, I was at Whatcom County PUD's board meeting a week or two ago, and they had about the same amount and they had 53,000 meters. So it was kind of interesting, the difference between our utility and theirs. They're all water, where we have other things going on, but they're not even halfway through their process. So
Yeah, there's.
good job on you guys on getting this done.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of utilities out there that have not even started,
Wow.
so we'll see what happens come.
Nice to get your homework done early. All right, Kevin?
Okay, Jose's still up
Oh.
and he's gonna give us an Eagle Ridge update.
Okay, the ongoing saga.
We did reach out to the engineering firm and they replied with asking a little more time.
And could you-
for this report.
So this is the one where all the data has been provided to the engineering firm and they
Yeah.
haven't completed their work of assessing what needs to be done in order to achieve a certain goal. And we're just waiting for them, but you checked in with them to say, hey, when are we gonna hear back?
The peak demand for some of those homes up there has I think, put a little bit of a wrinkle in their findings.
Okay,
So it's upsizing, doing that kind of stuff that they weren't anticipating. So they're asking for a few more weeks to finalize a report for us.
Okay.
I did communicate with
the Eagle Ridge representative. Okay. Are we anticipating needing to get more data at this point, or do we feel like we've gotten all the data that is
I think they
needed?
have all the data that they need.
Okay.
They're just crossing their T's and dotting their I's.
Okay. Questions?
Is there any progress in terms of the fire hydrant that was also on the minds of the Eagle Ridge community?
So we've done research. If Eagle Ridge community, per our policy today, if they request a fire hydrant, then the PUD would charge them to do the hydrant. If there's existing work going on, remember they asked to do the hydrant in conjunction with the line extension to the development going.
Yeah.
up line.
Pomona Woods or whatever.
Yes, thank you. That would make it a little more economical.
Yeah.
But other than that, we do know our present policy says they would pay for it because they requested it.
Was this, and trying to remember what I know about the Eagle Ridge situation. So we've got a bigger water line. Is it Oak Bay Road where this intersects?
Yes.
We've got a fairly good sized water line down there. Was it discussed that fire hydrant go down there, or were they actually talking about up in the?
No,
Eagle
no,
Ridge?
no, no, no. There's not enough pressure to put it up there. It
And
has
they've
to
all-
be at
Yeah.
street level.
And they've only got like 2-inch lines or something too, so you can't really have a fire hydrant running off of 2 inch, so it would have to be down at, okay. So if they want one, then the process is they have to come to us and they have to pay for it, basically, okay. And I guess is that, do you feel like that's been communicated to them or from your sense of things?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so they understand,
I
okay,
think so.
okay.
That-
Cool.
One last question on that. Do we know if that Pomona Woods project is going forward or not?
The PUD has not heard anything in over a year. I went and talked to Jimmy, you know, he's kind of our
Yeah,
representative, that kind of like the first touch, and we don't know of anything going on right now. They have not come back at all to us, so we're saying it's at least paused right now.
thank you.
Next.
So next, I'm gonna have Melanie talk about a couple job positions that we're hiring out and give us an update.
Melanie DeMaria, HR Director at PUD. In early August, we started recruiting for an electrical operations director, an engineering director, and a controller. After 3 weeks of recruitment, we had a low volume of applicants for each position. So we extended that 2.5 weeks. The first review will take place next week. Hopefully by next week, we'll have 4 applicants in each of those pools. We are also opening a water operations director by the end of the week, this week. And then the next positions that we'll be working on is the energy efficiency specialist, the meter technician position, a facilities custodian, and flaggers.
Wow.
Lots going on the recruitment front, and exciting news, Will O'Donnell selected a substation and metering technician. I think last week he accepted our offer and he'll start with us in early October.
Nice. And some of these positions sound like they're, you know, like flaggers and things like that. They could be things that people in this county might be interested in or have skills in. Are they, I know we have them on our website. Is there any, do we do anything with newspapers or anything else that helps get the word out there?
Do usually advertise it on the Leader and
Mhm.
then Peninsula Daily News to
Okay.
cast a net in the local community.
Right.
And then Will and Jameson have done a great job of spreading the word on Facebook.
Okay.
And I think, that helps with word of mouth too
Good.
in our community.
Cool. Thank you.
So those were easy ones. The next two are gonna be a little bit different discussion. And we're gonna start with NOAANET.
Mm,
And Joel, please jump in wherever you think appropriate.
Kevin, before you go down that, could you give us a little more background on what NCS is, what that means? Is that the type of is that the NOC services?
Yeah.
What's the NCS contract as you get down the road on this?
Okay. And I'm gonna oversimplify this. We received a bill from NOAANET for approximately $30,000. I don't believe we owe the $30,000. We don't think we have a contract with them. We're not sure where the $30,000 comes from. Long story short, we have requested them to send a contract. They sent 2 contracts, one Jim Parker signed, one was signed in 2020. As board remembers, we had this same discussion about 1.5 years ago where the amount they were supposed to pay us per connection and those kind of things. At that time, I thought it was agreed, okay, we're squared up. We didn't have a contract. That's why we did our compromise. So, we're gonna be doing a lot of research. Honestly, I'm gonna rely heavily on Will to help us out there and Joel to interpret what we do have, which is very sparse. We, again, I'm just gonna reiterate, they want to send it to collections. This is the first notice like this that we've gotten. If we, as a PUD, owe people money, we pay. We don't have a question. Our job is not to, if it's a legitimate bill, we pay them. We pay every day. So, I don't believe we owe it. I will tell you this, however, in our research, if it does come back that we owe it, I'll come back to the board. And I'll say, hey, I was wrong. We found this, and we're gonna have to pay it. But right now, I don't think we should pay it. And until they give us more information on what's going on, I don't know if they will. They may send it to collections, but we'll see.
So a little bit of clarification, if you could, was this 2 years? Was this for services supposedly rendered in 2022 and then services rendered in 2023? What exactly are we being billed for? And would we normally pay this monthly, yearly? How would this have, I mean, is this unusual to get a bill kind of after the fact? Because I'm guessing the reason we got the bill was the contract lapsed in their eyes. I mean, just trying to understand the whole progression here of what we're being billed for, what services we got, and why it was triggered now and not earlier.
So these are services to monitor, not services, to monitor our system.
And the NOC stands for,
Network Operations Center, and it's where they monitor switches, routers, pieces of equipment that tell you the health of the equipment or the network. In 2022, there was a dispute between NOAANET and the PUD because we wanted lists of everything they were monitoring and why we were paying for them to monitor their own equipment. There's things like that that went into it. So in 2022,
so, and to finish that up, we had a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of discussion. It seems like we resolved on a number and that was paid.
NOAANET paid, yes,
They paid us.
they paid us.
Okay.
And now,
And did we, because I'm hearing you're saying there was an agreement when Jim Parker was here, some sort of contract and then another contract.
that's what NOAANET sent us. They're
Okay.
basing their claim on those two contracts, and I have sent them on to you all and to Joel.
Okay.
And there's a lot of emails going back and forth for over a year that are gonna have to go through to really determine whether what I think is correct that we don't owe them, or if NOAANET is correct, we'll stand up and say, hey, NOAANET, we have to pay.
Does NOAANET, do we bill NOAANET and does NOAANET bill us something each month? I mean, back to Dan's question, what is the ongoing relationship with NOAANET just from like a billing perspective? Is there a normal?
In the normal, we pay, they pay monthly.
Okay, so we're billing them, they're billing us, we're paying.
You want me to?
Yeah.
take-
We show up in their vouchers every month.
Yeah.
And same,
Yeah.
and other entities in the county as well show up on
And
this.
this almost sounds like one of those things of, oh, hey, we found something. We haven't been billing you accurately. You actually owe us this amount, this higher amount than what we were billing you. Is that what this is, or what is this? It's
No,
confusing.
they sent this to us a year ago and we said we never contracted for these services. We're not paying for this. And then I thought it was resolved in the negotiations Joel was taking part of
Okay.
to do the other part where they were charging customers for services over our network and not paying us for those.
Okay,
To go back to the NCS agreement, that's the standard agreement we had for years and years that it was our membership agreement. We got these services, they got X services from us. We were trying to change it for you'll remember for years and years, because we wanted to have more ability to go out and get our own customers and do things in our network than we can do under the previous agreement. In 2021, we ended that agreement. We couldn't come to mutual terms.
Was anything put in writing basically saying we are no longer abiding by this agreement? Was there some sort of formal written
We
communication?
terminated the agreement. They accepted that termination.
So we have document evidence of that.
That's
right?
all documented. That was all discussed in that last
Okay.
settlement.
Okay.
And this one, the next agreement we have was the NCS, which was basically our basic membership where we got 10 gigs of internet,
Mhm.
basic knock monitoring and these things. So we said, yes, we signed that so we could
Sure.
have the basic agreement.
Okay.
That comes with some monitoring. They also charge for additional monitoring of extra devices. We never requested additional monitoring. We never signed an agreement for an additional monitoring.
Okay.
In 2023, so that was in 2022, that was signed. In 2023, in July, we've got our first brand new network, giant Cisco routers. And when we got those installed, we reached out to Noanet to see about having them do the after-hour support on those devices. And then we added a couple more. And so we put that through. That took about, I think that was in July, we asked for that. In October, they still had not gotten those devices up on their monitoring system. They hadn't gotten it done technically. And then at that same time, they sent us this bill for 30,000 saying we owed them for the past year and a half of monitoring of devices we didn't agree to. We asked for the list of devices. They sent it to us. A good portion of them were devices that had been offline for years. So we didn't agree with that. We were happy to pay them for the devices that we asked for them to monitor. And that went back and forth. By December, we canceled the request for the new monitoring. We were able to do it ourselves for a piece of software that cost $300 one time. I don't know what went on, why they're trying to get this back payment, but that is my understanding of it to the best of their knowledge. For
Okay.
the last year, every once in a while, when we have a disagreement or a difference of opinion, I'll get the $30,000 invoice sent back to me, and I've responded saying, we've finished this in the settlement. I don't know why you keep sending this. And then in our most recent request to ask for a second path off the peninsula, which they could provide at any time, their response to that request was the $30,000 invoice.
And that second path off the peninsula, is that in any way related to that break we had recently? Okay.
Good help.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this feels like a relationship issue, and it just feels like if you have a dispute about billing, that you usually have a process to go through resolving that dispute, and just sending it to collections doesn't seem productive. We have a seat on their board. I don't understand what's going on.
We don't either.
This was escalated to me last Friday. You know, I sent
Okay.
some stuff out to the board. Joel's looking at some things. Again, if we owe, we pay.
Right.
We don't have an issue. We just honestly don't believe we owe them in this case. A lot of this, though, will take a lot of time going through emails, and a lot of information has to be gleaned from, conversations that will take
Okay.
some time.
Well, it took some time last time, and I remember last time I called Craig a couple of times and had some conversations with him, and then he would circle back to Mike and his staff. And I'm kind of wondering if it would be appropriate just to call Craig again and just say, hey, can we talk about
No, I'd prefer you not do that right now.
that? Okay.
Sorry, just, we don't know what the facts are. Your counsel doesn't know what the facts are.
Okay.
So before you weigh in, it would probably be helpful if we all knew what the facts were, at least on our side of the ledger here.
My concern is if they're taking action like sending it to collections when maybe it might not be in their interest of their organization to do that. I just wonder if their CEO is involved.
it might be helpful for Commissioner Tupper he sits on the board to have that conversation, just to.
Craig Nelson is on every email, and when I've replied back, for example, saying, hey, we'd like to see the contracts,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. Craig is on here. It's not just Mike. There
Okay.
is, Craig's involved. I do think, one of the options, we talk about it at the NOAA meeting. We asked to have it on the agenda with, and just by that time, it gives Joel approximately a week to do some research on our side. And we just say, hey, we don't believe we,
Are you gonna be at that meeting, Kevin?
Yes.
I am gonna be at that.
And we,
Okay.
we can get it put on the agenda, then we can ask to have it pulled off once we get over there, if we have any discussions or something comes to light in the meantime. I'm with Joel. I was hesitant to reach out, calling Bay, because I look at staff dealing with this and I don't know any of the facts about what's transpired in the last 2 years for certain. So until legal counsel and Kevin and staff figure out, like Kevin said, if we owe it, we'll pay it, right? That's never been an issue. The question still is do we owe that, or, and why? And get that clarified. So my only question is on the collections part of it. Did it go to collections, or is it are they threatening to put it to collect? I mean, full disclosure, Craig brought this to my attention when I was there last month, but I told him, I said, this was a staff issue at this point, basically, and I was going to let staff let it run its course. So, but yes, I'm on the board, and Kevin's on the, he's the member representative as well. So we have voices at the table, but it's just a matter of what's the timing of, and what are the right questions to ask, and when to ask them. And I hear legal counsel telling us, he'd prefer at the moment we just let this, kind of roll along. So Joel, I see your hands up. Go ahead.
Thanks. I guess the question I have is, if we were seeking a route off the peninsula, I have to assume that, it's a valuable connection to them. I mean, we are members. It's a little, confusing to me about why they, wouldn't want our business.
Well, I would say, I
there's
don't think they're
other
going to
path-
deny us that, though. I don't think this would be a denial by knowing that. My personal take is we
Yeah.
would still get access to that route. Whether it's $30,000, I guess, again, this number keeps appearing and I'm not sure if there's a correlation.
We have access through Mason 3 that we are building at this time. I just don't want to get distracted in some of those odd things. I'll really on this one, I want to concentrate. I have told them, I don't think we owe them, and I think that should be our focus, is really just resolving this $30,000, dealing with them on these other projects. To me, that should be separate. Now they may not look at it that way, but
All right.
for us,
I don't think we're going to resolve it tonight. So,
this was FYI
okay.
for the board.
So you mentioned that we are now building a second broadband route off of the peninsula. And when do you anticipate that'll be completed?
We are waiting on the final quote to get out of Shelton. So we hope as early as 2 weeks, as soon as within a month.
Now, does this relate, I'm sorry to bring up NOAA again, but does this relate back to, we were asking them for a second route off? We didn't really get a response, so we're doing it.
There's an existing path through them that could be activated at any time.
So instead of doing that, we're
We're,
doing this other thing.
we cannot get a price for that path.
The other thing actually, though, is in our partnership with Mason 3 and the
Mhm.
BPA fiber. So it is
Sure.
this should have been done.
Heck, we may-
Eventually, we were gonna do it anyway.
We may want 3 paths off the peninsula. Who
And,
knows?
and Mason,
We should.
and Mason 3 is a NOAA member as well with position on the board.
Yep.
So again, there's communications that are going to happen here.
Okay.
My question again still is on the collection part of it. I mean, is that something that has been activated and triggered and is on a path, or is that waiting to be determined?
I can reach out to Craig in the morning and say, hey, Craig, you know, because they know we're visiting with you all at the board. I told them we would talk about it. I'll say we visited, we would like, you know, to resolve this as quick as possible and find out, what he says.
Okay, thank you. Next. The next hard one.
Yeah, the next one's, next
You-
one's,
You're supposed to, I don't know if it's better to start with the hard ones and you get easier, or it's just. All right, here we go.
so, this is gonna be a little different. So we're looking at our grant work and budgets and cash flow. Mike is gonna contribute on some of the cash flow issues. Will and I are gonna talk the pros and cons of trying to get these jobs done sooner, started sooner. And in a debate, you never start off by saying your opponent has very good arguments. Will has good arguments. There's reasons to try to push through and get these things done as quick as possible.
I'm sorry, could you just clarify?
So
What was our plan and how are we proposing, or how is Will or whoever proposing something different just to get us up to speed here?
So we're completing our first grant. It will be complete, the half that has to be complete, the soonest will be complete probably by the end of the year. The in-betweens probably by February.
Okay,
So we are ready to go out to bid for grant number 2.
okay. And which area is that?
It is Jefferson North, which includes Maristone and-
Okay.
and, you know, some big areas.
Okay,
And it's roughly about the same size of grant we completed or are getting complete in the Discovery Bay area. Will and the contractors feel they would be ready to go to bid within a month
whoa,
for this project, and that means realistically, contractors could start first of the year. I am concerned about our cash flow.
Okay.
And we have a lot of projects going on and our cash flow, it swings very rapidly. Last month, we spent $2 million for North Sky. And it dropped our cash flow down to about $4,000.
and that
Or $4
eventually.
million.
And that
Not 4,000, yeah.
And that eventually gets reimbursed,
It
but it's
takes
just, but it takes a while.
3 weeks to a month to get reimbursed.
Okay,
So, but we're gonna get these big swings, and next month we'll get not only the $2 million from the contractor to repay him for the last month's worth of work. We will also have our BPA bill. We
mm,
will also have our RUS.
yeah,
So it's just a lot of bills coming due. We are getting into the season where, you know, our revenues start to go up a little bit as the weather cools down.
right.
So I think we really need to look at pulling back just a pinch on these projects. And instead of bidding them in October, bid them in January. Or putting delayed start dates on it.
Right.
Where you could maybe bid it now, but put a later start date.
So I get it. I mean, basically, we're not changing what we're doing. It's just that Will is like, hey, I'd like to get an earlier start on the next one. And you're like, hey, let's wrap some of these up so we're not paying another layer of contractors on top of the ones that we're paying to finish right now. You're like, have them more kind of have one end and have another one start.
Correct.
Okay, I get it.
And
So, and Kevin made one comment there, and this is what concerns me regardless of the discussion we're having on cash flow is our revenues have been trending down per the reports we're getting from the CFO. So again, I'd really hate to see us gambling that the weather's going to be bad and that the outcome of that is we have more revenue and we don't have any damage that we have to pay for, right? Because those two things can offset each other. So that's what concerns me on the cash flow side of it, as Kevin said, $1.5 million for our power, $1.5 million for our RUS loan. There's $3 million that are going to hit us all at once. And we're already been lowered down. the cash flow does matter because it does pull reserves down, which puts us out of compliance. And whether it's for a month, 2 months, 3 months, I don't know what the timeline there is. That puts us out of compliance with our own financial policies. So we need to look at our policies and decide, do we need to change those, or are we okay with this becoming the status quo of playing this game this way of always robbing Peter to pay Paul and not being in compliance from a cash flow perspective on what we're doing on our finance and risk management policy.
So I think this probably falls into your, Kevin, your judgment of the organization and when to time projects and so forth. I appreciate you informing us of what's going on. I'm kind of curious from Will's perspective. Are you proposing to get an early start just because staff has capacity and there's contractors out there? Or are you seeing that, boy, this deadline comes up fast? It'd be nice to get a little earlier start. So the deadline, we got a little more time at the end. What are your thoughts on it?
I don't see it as an earlier start at all. I mean, we're 2 years behind start dates of the projects. We applied for these projects in 2021, telling customers we'd have these services in 2023.
Mhm.
So we're pushing them back and we're pushing them back.
Mm.
Some of we had to, all of our contracts for the funding were delayed a year.
Sure.
All kinds of delays. But we need to have all the projects done by summer of 2026.
Yeah.
But in summer of 2026, we have more projects that are also due at that time. We have 3 projects: the Discovery Bay East, the Jefferson North, and the Port Townsend project all have to be completed summer of 2026. And then we start the reconnect in that project is an $18 million project. And then we have BEAD after that. So to me, it's not a matter of trying to go earlier too fast. We have customers in the community that have been asking for these services and begging for them for years, and we've been doing our best to get it to them. I really don't want to push it back.
Okay.
If we don't have to. There's a number of efficiencies where if we keep our engineering contractors and some of the others moving, then we gain it by being able to roll from one project to the next. As far as the cash flow goes, completely understand that issue. Wouldn't want to do that. All of these projects are fully funded projects. We get reimbursed within 3 weeks, sometimes within 10 days when we put it in. So all of that money will roll right through. The biggest thing for us as far as cash flow is this project, the entire fiber project, the broadband build out. The sooner we get to 4,000 customers, the sooner we get to break even and beyond.
Yeah.
So as soon as we can get these customers for online is really the best for us. If there's extra work that has to be done, I've mentioned to Kevin many times, I'm not shy about going out and getting more money, whether we have to do it through grants or loans, or if we have to have a short-term bridge funding, we can do that. But the main thing is I don't see delaying anything as helping our cash flow.
Okay.
These bills are going to come due throughout the year. And we have different ways of making sure that we can stage how the expenses come in.
So any other questions or comments from the board?
Well, I have one more comment. I think this is under the purview, and I think we're saying it, under the purview of the general manager's discretion. I mean, we have a budget for this year, but again, I don't like to see us get in the habit of not following our policies. I get it. There's exceptions, but if we get into the routine of this being the norm, then we really need to review our policies and get our policy set, more in that line. Otherwise, why do we have policies?
I mean, we've been building back towards the reserve levels that we set. Again, this is, Kevin, I appreciate you showing us what goes on behind the scenes. It's kind of your call, and you and the folks get to arm wrestle about that. I'm gonna grab this real quick. It's my son.
Yeah,
Sorry.
if it's a matter of a couple of weeks where our reserves dip, I can live with that. If it's a matter of our reserves being down for a more extended period of time, then maybe we go out to bid and we delay the start time a little bit. But I hear what Will is saying. And, you know, you start to slip deadlines and things tend to accumulate. And then it's hard to catch up, maybe impossible. Besides the fact that it'd be nice to be earning money from this.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna have Mike, we not only have a couple parts on how to move forward, but we're also looking at the financial piece of the situation.
mhm.
And Mike is gonna give a little bit of information on our reserve and restricted funds.
Okay.
So I just looked it up as they were talking, as Kevin and Will were talking. Right now we have about 13.8 million in the bank.
Okay.
Only 4.3 of that is unrestricted. I mean,
Okay.
we can use it for anything. We have 9.5 million in restricted cash. Half of that is matching funds for the Reconnect grant that we can't touch until we get to that project.
Okay.
So we have those funds already available, but until we get to that project,
Are some of those funds the projects that Will is talking about here?
no,
Those other ones?
that's the Reconnect, which is in 26.
Oh, my.
But the state's already given us the money, so we're set up to
So
do
that money doesn't exist for all intent and purposes in the next 2-3 years.
Correct, yeah, it's out there, it's actually getting ready to be moved to another account for the Reconnect grant. So Kevin and I talked and we looked at some different options to move some of our restricted cash to our unrestricted cash. We have our tax revenue funds that we can use for different purposes. We've talked about, you know, reimbursing ourselves. I sent an email to Joel and to Olga Darlington with Moss Adams just to verify. Said, we want to do this, make sure we can do it, we need to go back and do it. Because we have money, you know, for our Peterson Lake loan payments that we've been making. We can use part of the tax fund for that. And be able to reimburse ourselves for some projects that we've been doing out of our tax funds that will make it move those from restricted cash to unrestricted cash. And kind of bump that back up because we do have at the end of September here now already, we have to pay BPA, we'll have to pay RUS, we have to do that. So, and anything else that comes up in between, we can't, I mean, we just are gonna be running low on the restricted cash.
Yeah.
So that's money that we have already available, that now trying to look and see what we can do. There's some other options that involve borrowing and looking at that availability. I'm working on it, haven't got it submitted. We have the loan for the AMI meters. We got about, I think, $600,000 right now that's ready to be drawn down. I just need to get the paperwork submitted to RUS. We can draw that down and get that in here. We did just submit.
Which is expenses that we've had to pay for that otherwise.
Yeah, we've had
this
to pay.
This is reimbursing
Yep.
ourselves through the loan.
Through the loan,
Okay.
do that.
Yeah.
We did just submit last Friday, the A19s for the $2 million that we paid to North Sky. So that we're waiting on that money to come in.
Okay.
We do have the line of credit with Cooperative Financial Service Corporation, the CFC. That's the $5 million that is there for emergencies. We do have CoBank. We've been working with those. Joel's been reviewing some of the resolutions and stuff to get set up with CoBank.
So just for clarification, the $5 million line of credit is not part of the monies you're considering unrestricted now.
No,
It's an addition.
yeah, we don't
Okay.
I don't count that. I mean, we can get it as according to our policy, that can be part of our cash reserves on hand. But when I give you the money, well, we have it in the bank readily available today. Then there's also through CoBank, it's just a matter of getting approved because we do need vehicles for all these new hires and, you know, just replace, we have an aging, I mean, just like everything else, our vehicles are aging as well. Where we can do a lease program through them. We looked at it once, there were some questions about the perms, this being self-insured.
Mm.
That they were trying to help us through.
Mm.
So that's another option where we don't have we don't have to pay $50,000 in one lump sum. We can take that over 7 years. So there are some options out there. You know, a lot of it is borrowing, like Will said, it's the grants, loans, you know, sometimes through the state, we can get the low interest loans. Most of the time, they're hard to get by, so.
So I see some of the efficiencies you're talking about, like with the meter, the money on the meters and that loan. But again, I know in an earlier report, we heard from Human Resources that we're on the cusp or verge of hiring 3 high-level key employees, couple more employees. We just hired another, that's $5,750,000 worth of employees just in the short term that we're talking about, that we're gonna, and we're not paying that all up front. But I'm saying that we're gonna be taking on these other costs. And this roller coaster ride, it seems to me to be a little bit more conservative up front and take the time to see how things are gonna play out between now and the end of the year before we just keep continuing on this roller coaster ride of using reserves, see how things play out. Because we may not get the kind of winter that, we're used to, and we may not get a revenue bump between now and the end of the year, so.
I think you come to the board with something like this, you're gonna hear both responses. We'd like to get things done as quickly as possible. We'd like to have you be efficient and get stuff built and bill the state and get reimbursed. And we don't want our reserves, we don't want to get a bad news meeting on, oh, the reserves are going to hit zero unless we draw the line of credit, because we just got a BPA bill or whatever. So, that's kind of what you get from us on this one. And I think this is informational really, isn't it?
It's informational.
Okay.
Like I say, cash reserves are a strange thing because, with the contractor here, depending on how his bills stack up or their bills stack up, we could get a $3 million construction bill, have to pull that out. And those are concerns.
It's a big number. Yeah.
And then with our other normal, we spend between 300,000 and 500,000 every week for just our normal day-to-day business.
Are you able to communicate with the contractor so that those bills don't arrive like as a surprise? Are they giving you kind of a heads up so you know when they're coming, or is that not really the case?
No, they're monthly bills. We had a little bit of a backup on the first couple, so there's gonna be an occasion where we get two in the same month, and they're both due 30 days from when we receive them. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Once we're past that, it'll be back to a month.
Okay. I don't know if this is worth talking about anymore.
I made my opinions clear. I think this falls within the purview of the general manager
Yes.
at this point to determine the best course,
Yes.
for the utility, barring any unforeseen information or
Yep.
events that we don't know of.
Thanks for the discussion. Is there any more staff report?
No,
Okay.
that's-
We're through it.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
what about the question?
The regulators.
Yeah.
That's, I saw it on my notes. So it takes, these are single phase regulators, 3 regulators per substation. So it's 2 substations. We will come back to the board. We just talked about our financing. We'll come back to the board in another month and request 6 more, kind of space them out 4 or 5 months before we get the next. set.
And Phil's question was, are we ordering these? Is there?
They were, the board approved it the next day. It started to go through our process to the PO and that.
And when do you think those will be installed then?
Oh, we won't get them for a year plus.
Okay. Great. All right. I think we're to commissioner reports, are we not? Commissioner Collins, are you willing to go first?
Sure. Brief report. 22nd of August, I had a meeting with the general manager. I was expecting on the 27th to participate in the PERMS audit exit interview. But interestingly enough, the icon on my laptop for Outlook turned gray and was inoperable. So I spent a little part of the afternoon coming back here and having that reprogrammed, so it works now. But I missed that meeting. However, there was a written report that I reviewed from PERMS, and it was a very clean audit. No issues whatsoever. Had another meeting with the general manager on the 30th. On Thursday this week, I will participate in the EDC board meeting, meet with the general manager on the 6th. Hopefully, we'll have good weather on the 7th, and I'll look forward to the PUD picnic and meet again with the general manager on the 13th.
Great. Dan?
So I participated in the WAPAG Zoom meeting on, that's a Washington Public Agencies Group, Zoom meeting on August 22nd. Ryan Neal gave a report about BPA revenue projections for the rest of 2024. BPA revenues are trending in a way that there won't be a reserve distribution clause activated on the power side like we've experienced the last 2 years. And it's possible, though, that the BPA transmission side may see a small reserve distribution, but it's usually that's like a tenth of what the power side is. So it's small, way smaller, if assuming that it triggers. But BPA would likely pay down debt if it were triggered anyways. So if there's a transmission side, if they get that, if their numbers work out to where there would be a distribution, they'd probably just sit on that money and use it themselves. There were discussions about the 2028 provider of choice contract language and the products coming out of that contract, moving toward final draft form for signing in late 2025. So there'll be workshops with BPA in the next 6 months along getting that language ironed out. A report on BPA, the BP 26 rate case, 3-year rate case, and the substantial increase in rates are likely. I mean, it's our cost of power, and this is what concerns me with our budget, is what we're budgeting for the cost of power. It's going to go up substantially. And I think we really need to be mindful of that when we look at our budget for what those costs are really going to be to us. WAPAG's going to draft a letter. Actually, they've already done it. Drafted a letter in support of the BPA staying invested in the Southwest Power Pool Markets Plus market development. There was an extensive discussion at this meeting, WAPAG meeting, around the value of Markets Plus versus the CAISO, the California Independent System Operators Day Ahead market. WAPAG will give a report on the Pathways Initiative discussions and market governance concerns at the next WAPAG meeting. And what that is that's trying to work towards CAISO's day ahead market, getting the governance where it's not California oriented and centric, to where if they're going to run the market, everybody's on an equal footing rather than California being at an advantage, which is the way it sets now. I accompanied WAPUTA staff and the WAPUTA Executive Committee on a visit to Skagit County PUD on August 27th. We had about a 1-hour meeting with Skagit's general manager, some of their key staff, and Commissioner and President of the board, Joe Lindquist, on what Skagit's and WAPUTA's priorities are for 2025. They gave us a tour of the new office facility that they're building, which will be ready to start being occupied in October. I also had the opportunity to meet Travis Nelson, who is WAPUTA's new regulatory affairs manager, on the visit to Skagit as well. So I met with General Manager Street on August 30th, and I'm going to attend PPC on September 4th and 5th. I'll attend the PUD employee picnic on the September 7th. I will attend the Jefferson County Fire Chiefs meeting via Zoom on September 9th. I'm going to attend the NOAANET meeting on September 11th. I meet with Kevin Street on September 13th, and I will attend our BOC meeting on September 17th via Zoom from the WAPUTA meetings in Wenatchee.
Okay.
That concludes my report.
Stan, on the 21st of August, had a meeting with Kevin Street. On the 22nd with Don McDaniel, and listened in on that WAPAG meeting that Dan was talking about. And thanks for the report on that. On the 23rd, I had a phone call with Bill Graham to better understand the history of Peterson Lake and why we acquired it and what our goals were and kind of the water goals. So that was really helpful discussion. Let's see
Were there any takeaways from that you weren't?
Oh, there's a lot. That's a whole nother discussion point, but yeah, Peterson Lake is this, we had somebody here who was talking about the amount of money we've invested in that. Is that a good investment? I think there's a lot of questions about Peterson Lake that we should probably talk about sometime about, and I think we may have some options, on how we can achieve our goals and maybe not be as exposed as I think we are now, I feel.
So can we have that on a future agenda and have Bill on the line?
Yes.
And it's timely because the renters are gonna be out shortly and we're gonna have these buildings there. We've got all this upland property. We've got the water issues. So, and we've got money wrapped up in it and potential exposure, for expenses and things. So I think it's worth talking about. I'm also going to listen in on the PPC meetings coming up on the 4th and the 5th. Virtually, I'll be at the picnic on the 7th, and I will plan to listen in on the NOAA meeting also. And that's my report. Okay, next item. Consent agenda. Do we have any changes to the consent agenda? Seeing
Anybody
none,
online?
can I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second. All in favor of the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Consent agenda is approved. Number 8, old business capacity charge. Kevin?
So we didn't bring a resolution back. I'm gonna give just a little bit of information, clarify a couple of points with the board, and then hopefully the next meeting we some additional work on this. Will is gonna bring up what I emailed the board. We're recommending approximately 40% of the charge that FCS came back with. If you'll scroll down to the very bottom, Will. This is revenues that we would have recouped in 2022 and 2023. And then what we would have recouped so far this year. This year, our construction is down. New homes have just not hit it. So this year, depending on how the rest of the year goes, we'll be at 200 and something plus $1,000 at the 40%. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it does help keep our rates down that FCS is going to work on. It is just one more tool in the toolbox. So that, if the board's okay with that, we are going to come back with a 40%. We do believe that low income built by a developer, not by an individual, we would do 20%. We would model our program just like the city has done. And so that's the low income piece. You can see the commercial rates up here. We've only done one commercial. And that would have gone to 9,000 3-phase commercial.
Kevin, before you move on, let's stay on the low income for a second. Maybe Gene could weigh in. What's the determination they're using for the poverty levels? Is it the 150%, or when a developer comes in, what do they have to be building that they would qualify for that 20%? Do we have an idea what that looks like?
Based on the city's policy, I don't know what their policy actually reads on the percentage of low income. I'm assuming it's gonna be. The builder has to be like a 501c.
I would
type.
hope we would make it fairly well defined so that it isn't like a loophole that developers come in and, well, we're going to do 3 units of this and 10 of that, so that they just barely qualify, right, to get the reduction, something like that.
You only get the reduction on the units that are low income.
Okay.
If you build 10 and half are low income and half are working houses, the discount only applies to the low income side, not to the whole development.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess next time when this comes back to us, if we could have that definition that we intend to use, that'd be helpful.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And the plan is if we if we approve the resolution for the 40%, that gets increased 10% for the next 3 years?
That's staff recommendation, but that can be pulled. Our discussion today, you can say, I'm not that comfortable. The theory behind that was it's built in, but the commission, let's say in July, would look at it and say, yep, we're gonna go ahead with the 10% increase, similar to what we've done with the rates in the past.
And I prefer that approach. I would rather that we schedule it in there so that we have to review it every year, and then then staff will have to produce the numbers to say, here's the impact. And then we would decide from there. I wouldn't want to try going and adding or doing something different. Just have it in place and be easy for us to just pull it out.
Kind of like we did with the rates. Okay. So I have a couple of questions. One is on the commercial side of things. And I'm assuming this is a math problem that and it's not totally evident to me because when you get into, we're talking the upper ones, the 200 amp service on a house, that's at, 120, 240, whatever that math is. Then when you're talking 3-phase, that's a different mathematical equation. But I wondered if you could maybe explain that a little bit, because the numbers I'm looking at, if you could scroll back down again, you had one, and I'm not asking for like the business name, but like if you could give an example of like the type of business that results in $100,000 capacity charge, or there's one that's for 1,200, 1,200 amps is 40,000 capacity charge. The concern I have is, are we gonna put ourselves is this big enough that somebody's gonna say, screw it, I'm going to Clallam County to open my business, because they're not friendly in Jefferson County. I don't know if these are high enough to have that kind of impact. And so I guess I'm asking so is the math simple math that they're getting the amount of electricity they're getting results in this? It's if you apply the voltage and the amperage and
That's,
boom, you get.
so it's 42 point something kVA. So, and Jimmy Scarborough put this together for Joy. So I'm comfortable with the numbers, and I am pretty comfortable. I know what that $105,000 is, and that 3,000 amp is the hospital extension.
Okay.
And
So it's a
there's
scale of project. It'd be like a school or a hospital, something really sizable.
huge.
Okay.
And there are ways to deal with those type of projects. There's verbiage in there you can put in so that and it's rare, and I hesitate to say much because I need Joel to weigh in. But for example, other places say, okay, if it is, and they list them, if it's a school, there's things that the PUD does a little bit different. I don't know if we can do that in Washington.
So you're talking about you would treat them
Or a
differently,
hospital.
like it's a public, like some sort of, for example, some sort of public facility might be treated different. That's one question. Another question I had, thinking of like a business, if it's got a $30,000 or $40,000 fee. Oftentimes businesses, and Ken knows this as someone who ran a winery, it can take a while to get your cash flow up. You have all your expenses right away with your buildings and your equipment and your employees, and sometimes cash flow takes a while. Could a program like this, could they pay it over, say, 3 years or something? Is that an option that we would have?
Again, we're gonna have to default some of this to Joel.
Okay.
I would, and part of this is bookkeeping reasons.
Mhm.
I think 3 years is too long.
Okay.
If it's a large enough sum, maybe, but for smaller sums,
Or
1
2
year,
years.
a payback quicker, I think is better for everyone, maybe
Right.
not necessarily the customer. But we can look into options to pay back at a certain dollar amount to give them, say, like 2 years to pay back. That we could do. And in my past though, And we, in Southern Nevada, we worried over this, but we were getting such growth, we literally couldn't afford to not do it.
So you did this in your Nevada
We did
jurisdiction?
this in Nevada, and when Walmart came to Mesquite, they paid 3 times as our largest one here, and they didn't blink an eye. They came in, they paid it. But it was common there, though. Everyone was, you couldn't just, oh, I'll jump over to the next utility. There was capacity fees because of growth. And so most of the companies that pay these fees are building that they won't blink an eye. It's like paying 20,000 for permits, you know,
Well, I
it's
guess-
part of the cost.
So you think that's true here in Jefferson County too? 'Cause I mean, we meet with the people who are coming in for new service. We know the kinds of businesses. I'm less concerned about the homes because again, it's fairly small. It's the city already applies these charges on water and sewer. So I think developers and builders are used to this stuff, but it's the businesses I'm a little more concerned.
I don't know about the businesses.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with the homes. I know, for example, Fort Ludlow Associates. When they build the home, they charge their own capacity fee to them
For the
home,
sewer.
for the sewer and the water. So,
Mhm.
so they already have these fees built into their homes.
Yeah.
I could reach out to Cindy or somebody and ask about the business.
I think that would be great. That'd make me feel a little bit better. Ken?
So in 2022, for the 200 amp circuits, there were 286 services. The following year, 125. This year, 35. With the higher numbers in the previous years, does that reflect large developments coming in primarily? Or is
No.
it more individual homes?
More individual homes. We did have a couple, what I would consider smaller subdivisions, but it is primarily over half would be individual homes. You know, like me building a home or you guys building a home.
And I would imagine interest rates have affected the construction numbers.
Yeah, we see cycles that.
Yeah.
So again, this is informational. You're looking to come back with something. You're looking to us for questions so that when you bring it back, hopefully you've got the information to answer our questions. Do we have more questions?
Yeah, I have one, and that is, again, I think we need to get this done ASAP and see how it plays out. For the purposes of FCS setting our cost of service and rate study, we need to get that done. And that's my question is, are we going to get an update from FCS, not just on the capacity fees, but on the rate case and cost of service study? I mean, that, I haven't heard much about that lately. And I've been talking about it for a year and a half that we need to get that done. Where are we and when is that going to get completed?
So, you'll get a very small update in October. I did FCS, Sergey specifically helped me earlier this week on the water ERUs per meter size and what a 2-inch water meter equivalent, so we could build a chart like this for water, because water is going to be the same, almost the same numbers. It's interesting, but our goal is the very first meeting with Sergey will be mid-October, maybe a little quicker, but they are extremely busy. They're doing, I was at, the managers meeting last week and almost everyone uses FCS and it has been doing
Interesting.
rate steps. So.
So, could you reach out to Cindy at the EDC? And do we have a chamber now? I know they
They
lost their director. Yeah, I don't think they're functioning. Yeah, so I think Cindy's our best resource for kind of impact to the business community. So.
Yeah,
appreciate that.
I should be a resource here.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, anything else on this one?
Nope.
And then, the firm definitions on the low income proposal and options that we discussed. Okay.
You have a hand up too, Jeff.
Oh, I can't see who that is.
Roger.
All right, we have a number that ends in 246. Did you have a comment or a question on this?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about it. The first point I'd like to make is that this is very inefficient as a way to raise revenue. The marginal cost of adding one customer is X, and the opportunity cost of not adding that customer is 50X. It just seems like you're biting the hand that feeds you. Our residential customers provide about 65% of our electrical revenue. That's the hand that feeds us. Cost causation principle, I think, distorts our view. It's a kind of a myopia. If you look at revenue causation, the residential people are the ones that are holding us up with their accounts. A house, when you build it, I grew up in a house my grandpa built. The house is still standing 99 years later. Niagara Mohawk is still collecting bills from that house. The money that you get from having that house there, so much more than the incremental cost. It just seems really inefficient to upfront charge $2,000 or $2,500 or $5,000 for a meter for a panel for that house. It just doesn't seem to make sense. It seems to be you're working against yourself. Again, inflation, I've said this before, we don't suffer from inflation. We pretend to, especially around rate case time, but actually we cause inflation and we benefit from it, and this is a really good example of that. Another thing is that we're in an uncertain rate environment here. We just raised our rates 2 months ago, and we haven't heard what the effect of those rates are. A couple of years ago, we raised our tier, our third tier. We still haven't had a report on what kind of money we're making from our third tier. Of course, our revenues are going down because it's that time of year, but it seems like our tie ratio is going up again. That's another indication that that we have adequate revenue coming in. The other things wrong with this is it sends no market signals. It doesn't reduce loads. And the capacity charges are mainly for water. We're not seeing them as widely for electrical, and I don't think they're appropriate. I guess I'll let it go at that. But that's, yeah, who's paying? I looked at that too. In the last 5 years, we've added 856 residential accounts. That's a 4.6% increase. And we've added 264 commercial accounts, and we've only added one large commercial account. So you've got 1,100 people paying and only one large commercial. Again, the people with the small motors are subsidizing the people with the large motors. I think we need to take a really good look at revenue causation instead of a cost causation. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, well, this will come back and we'll have more discussion. So thank you for the numbers, Kevin. That's helpful. Nothing more on this one. We'll move on to our next item, which is the Shine Plat LUD.
Did we ever do consent?
We did consent.
I don't remember. Did we? Oh, okay.
We did.
Sorry.
Yep, we did.
Shine Plat LUD number 17, final assessment resolution. Who's leading this one?
Mike. Just trying to find the right thing to share here. So this is, you'll remember back at on August 20th, also on July the 16th, we had a hearing, final assessment hearing. We went over a lot of things. So this is just a resolution now confirming that the board agrees and is approving the final assessment. So that way it can kick off the next set of things that we have to do for the LUD just the resolution. I appreciate Joel helping to get this written up for us. And where we're at today on everything, so this is just asking the board to approve this resolution. It gives them 10 days then to appeal it through the courts if they so choose to do, and then we'll send the letters out on how to prepay and do all the next steps.
Okay, so yeah, to sum up, we had the final assessment hearing on August 20th and provided more opportunity to testify, ask questions, and there really wasn't the concerns expressed at that one. The question I have is on the actual format of the resolution. There's one of the whereases. I'm trying to figure out which one it is. It's on the second page. It's the top whereas on the second page. And it's talking about the July 16th hearing and just the phraseology that's being used there. It's saying it was determined that there was an additional lot that had not been included in the final assessment. And it seemed like you had concluded, Mike, at the next hearing that no, the number of lots was correct. And I'm wondering if using that language could be confusing to somebody down the road who's trying to put it together. And I wonder if it should say something more like there were questions about the number of lots included in the final assessment and the board continued. I'm wondering if that language would be better.
I'm gonna defer to Joel because Joel wrote this resolution.
Okay.
I'm gonna defer this question to Joel.
Because I'm bringing it up, Joel, just because I asked the question.
Okay, all I know, I was under the impression that the number of lots was incorrect and we had to correct it, and that changed the calculation, which is why we continued it. So is that wrong?
We thought that might have been the case, but then Mike confirmed that the number was correct. Did you not?
That was part of the reason.
Yeah.
There was a question on the number of lots on July the 16th, which was part of the continuation. There was a couple other questions that came out of the July 16th hearing. And so that when by the time we got to the August 20th hearing, I had determined the number that I was using, which is 27,
Right.
was accurate. There was
And that was the number, I'm sorry, that was the number that was presented on the 16th, 27 lots.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Joel, I think
Okay,
just to avoid confusion, what I propose is that whereas would read, whereas at the July 16th, 2024 hearing, questions were raised about the number of lots included in the final assessment. Questions were raised about the number of lots to be included in the final assessment. Can somebody write
yeah,
that?
I've got that. I've
Got
got
it.
it.
And
I
then the-
have it, yes. So, absolutely, why don't we
that's better.
revise, maybe make a motion to revise that,
okay, that's
unless there's other changes.
pause there because I think we need to have an opportunity for any questions before we make the motion. But so we have any other questions on
So
this
nowhere,
resolution?
in here does it refer to the 27 lots. So should we include the actual number?
No, it's a good question, Commissioner, and there is to be a map attached that Mike had prepared, right?
Have the map.
Yeah, the map is attached. It's just
So
not.
that we incorporate that in by reference, and that shows all the lots.
So the handwritten one is going to be the one we're going with for the record.
Yep.
I have the map.
Okay. My only concern there, again, is it, Mr. Attorney, are you comfortable with this as
Yep.
there's no key? We've got handwritten numbers, we got circled numbers. I'm a little concerned about the lack of a key and just somebody down the road.
Well, there's 27 lots there, right?
I don't see any duplicative numbers.
And each lot owner gets a formal written notice. This is just a representation. It's not the final assessment. And you know, the assessment is the resolution, and then that authorizes the treasurer for the PUD to issue notice to each
Okay.
resident, and they will have a 10-day period to appeal, and then a 30-day assessment period to determine if they want to prepay and how much, and after that, the assessments for each lot are issued.
Okay, so I'll just create a record right here. So the attachment 1 has circled numbers, and on the legend, it says number of lots within the Shine Plat LUD boundary. That was the original potential number of lots. And then later through the process, when it was determined which lots were buildable, which lots would benefit, some lots were excluded, some lots were consolidated and merged, and we ended up with a new revised total. I think the original number was a potential of 33, and then the final number was actually 27, which would be benefited and were buildable or already built on. And those are in the handwritten numbers. That's the final number of lots. So we have just created a record. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this one? Not from the board. Anybody from the public have any questions or comments on this resolution? I'm seeing no hands. Okay. I will entertain a motion, and are you able to read back that revised whereas?
Yes. Tell me when you'd like me to.
So if you could read the revised whereas, then I would entertain a motion for the revised resolution.
Okay.
The resolution with the revised whereas.
So the resolution before the Board of Commissioners, the proposed revision is to the on page 60 of the board pack 2 of the resolution, and it's the first full paragraph there. It says, whereas at the July 16th, 2024 hearing, and this is the change, questions were raised about the number of lots included in the final assessment, and the Board of Commissioners continued the hearing until August 20th, 2024 at 2 p.m. in order to allow the revision to the final assessment to reflect the proper number of lots in LUD number 17.
Okay.
So I will move that the board approve the resolution as revised, that orders the final assessment for certain local improvements for LUD number 17, the Shine Plat LUD, and providing for payment of the cost of such improvements by special assessments.
We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the resolution, the modified resolution, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Shine Plat is done except for the publishing.
Yep.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
I will send the revised resolution for the signature by the commissioners immediately after the close of the hearing, to the meeting today.
Thank you, team.
Thank you. Appreciate the fly specking on that.
Yeah. Next one, new business, delegation of emergency declaration for certain projects, resolution.
So I'll take this one.
We're looking to join MRSC. And when we join MRSC, some of our past practices were defining better and putting a newer touch on it. What this allows basically us to do is every day we have outages. And if we don't go through MRSC and do the proper bidding, we're not following state law. So this allows us to, for example, if a water line breaks in the middle of the road, it allows us to go in and do the work, call in a contractor, do the repairs, fix the road, whatever we need to do. And I don't have to bring them to the board at every meeting. We get a lot of very small, like electrical underground line faults, where we bring in contractors to dig it up, help do road repairs. So this is a resolution that the board delegates to me anything less than 150,000. I do the paperwork. I have to do the documentation so that it satisfies the state side of things. Anything over 150,000, we bring to the board and it's done in the public board meeting. So
Okay, so this sounds like it's part of moving to MRSC to help us with the bid process. It sounds like it's kind of a best practice or a standard practice that's used by other utilities in Washington State and streamlines response time and getting work done.
with how we do it now, we don't use MRC. The minute we use MRSC to hire a contractor, we have to go through that process.
Okay,
And at 2 o'clock at night, we're not going to get 3 bids back.
yeah, okay.
So my question is that threshold still keep us in the small works roster realm, or does that open it up to more contractors, less contractors? Just curious about the previous marks we had that we were going by for bidding out work.
This is less than what, for example, unless it's 250,000 or more per our new procurement manual, it doesn't even hit the board. So this is less than that, but it's not, it's not designed to circumvent that type of work. This is, there has to be a emergency for us to use this resolution.
Okay,
This is I'm sorry, just to follow up, this is a separate issue from small works. It's actually to make sure we're in compliance with our emergency procurement statutes.
all right. Any other questions from the board? Questions from the public? Not seeing any. I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution delegating the declaration of emergencies to the general manager.
So moved.
All second?
Okay, it's kind of interesting. Declaration of emergency to the general manager for emergencies. Just want to read this one more time, make sure this makes sense. Resolution delegating the declaration. I guess so. All right, it's really an emergency. You got to say it twice. So we have a motion for the resolution and a second on the table. All in favor of approving the resolution, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. You have more authority
Thank you.
and help people out more quickly. All right, we have, I believe, reached the end of our agenda. And it is now 5:37 and we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.